Hi, with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the all across the Western world now, the high-handed action taken by an arbitrary action taken by banks to act as tough guy enforcers of the globalist project and to crush and just fuck up as much as they can anyone that questions or with any effect pushes back against the globalist project. So if governments can't do it, or it's not a good look for the government to be seen to be going out and crushing and destroying and private citizens and taking away the rights of those private citizens, contrary to law and contrary to the Constitution and Bill of Rights and all those sorts of things. But the government can, in collusion and collaboration with the private company. So, well, we can't go and get these guys. It's just a bad look if we do it, but you can. And whether they use social media to shut people down, deplatform them, or whether they use the banks to strangle off all their capacity to conduct financial transactions. And there's so much now that you just simply can't do in your day-to-day life without a bank account and without access to banking facilities, that it's effectively a kill shot if your banking facilities are denied. So this is an effective way of intimidating and oppressing private citizens who've committed no crime. They're asking inconvenient questions about globalization. So it's in the atmosphere of collusion these days. The government can simply go to a social media platform or a banking institution, or banking institutions plural, and say, go and get these guys. Now there's quite a few things here, given it's happened to Nigel Farage and it happened to other people. There's a video that Dinesh D'Souza has done recently about other people who've been debanked or unbanked, or whatever you want to call it, and arbitrarily so. Now, these banks aren't sort of going to people and saying, look, we're concerned about your behavior or what you've said or this or that. They're not saying, well, these are our concerns. Can we talk about it? That's not what's happening. There's just they're deciding internally in the bank, we're going to get you. And we're not going to talk to you. We're not going to discuss it with you. We're not even going to give reasons. We're just going to do it. And if you don't like it, tough. And by the way, we've been in contact with the other banks, so they're not going to give you banking services either. So they suck on that, motherfucker. How dare you question or talk back against globalization? So this is part of the thing today, and it's been coming on for a while. And there are those, provided it's someone that's anti-globalization is being debanked, then there's loud cheering and clapping from the globalist side of things. But if it's one of their people that get nailed, then it's civil rights, or no, the law, civil rights. But the law and these civil rights suddenly don't exist if it's someone on the other side. So it's all very ideological, and which side of the political fence or ideological fence, more like it, that anyone's on. But nonetheless, there are those. There is increasing outrage in a number of quarters now. That, hey, you're a bank. You don't have don't have the right or the legal right to just decide, we don't like your politics, we're not going to offer you banking services. And justifiably so. What the fuck have the banks got to do with political ideology? But the reality is, now we need to accept this, that the banking system all around the world is an absolute integral part, if not a leading part, of the globalist project in enforcing ESG, enforcing DI. They've become a bunch of thugs and bother boys to intimidate and threaten private citizens who aren't going along with the globalist project and or questioning it or whatever. So they've just become a bunch of goons. They could be the equivalent of the mafia goon boys that go around to collect protection money, or the protection money in the currency that the banks are thinking about is your silence, your non-questioning of the globalization project. But they're every bit as brutish and thuggish, in my view, if not more so, than the mafia goons of depicted in the Hollywood era, or in novels and movies like On the Waterfront and that sort of thing. So, but this outrage that's begun, the banks can't do that. This is terrible. Well, their argument is, or the argument of the commentary is, well, they're allowed to do that because they're fighting back against Nazis. They're fighting Hitler. So that's their justification. They're morally good for doing this. So what if they break the law? So what if they trample the Bill of Rights? So what if they trash the Constitution? They're fighting Hitler. They're allowed to do anything they want to anybody they want. But wait a minute, don't they have to prove that they're Nazis? No, they don't have to prove it. They just have to say it, just assert it. And those damn fucking fascist, fucking Nazi Hitlers, let's fucking nail those motherfuckers. So this is very much the thing. Now, we allowed the banks to be used as instruments of oppression from the sort of the earlier days, I guess, of the divorce courts in chasing alimony and child support and these sorts of things. Now, it didn't matter if the guy being chased who'd already been fleeced in the court for all his property and his assets. That didn't matter. It didn't matter that the guy may not even be the biological parent of the children. That doesn't matter. Nothing really mattered. But ideologically, well, we're allowed to just freeze someone's account or sweep the money out of their account or garnish their pay, intercept it when it gets to the bank. We're allowed to do that because we're protecting women and children. We're protecting children, little baby children. We're protecting them. We're doing good. So we're allowed to do all this bad, lots and lots of bad, because really we're doing good. And the banks were right in line with this, and surprised me that, and I'd had a number of people like, quite well-paid computer programmers and technical analysts and this sort of thing over the years, and they've been devastated by this, torn to pieces by it, and all that was needed was a woman could just go into a government agency, say, look, I need some sort of welfare benefits, and I need it for me and the children. Well, who's the biological father? I don't know. Well, who do you think it might be? Oh, I think it might be Billy Bob. Okay, Billy Bob of Dallas, Texas. Okay, well, there are 25 Billy Bobs in Dallas, Texas, and only one of them's got a steady job on good money. Why don't we say it's him? Oh, okay, yeah, all right then. Because if you don't tell us who the biological father is, and we're not going to give you any money. So you have to tell us that, otherwise you don't get any money. And this Billy Bob, he's making good money, so you can get $3,000 a month cash, tax free, if Billy Bob's the guy. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Billy Bob, sure, it's Billy Bob. Now, just on that alone, so the threshold of evidence is about zero. So on that basis, a letter gets sent out to Billy Bob where maybe he once lived. Where did he live at the time? There's no real effort to make sure that they find Billy Bob. All they have to do is say that they sent the letter out. Whether they did or not, even is another thing. But all they have to do is say that they, some little bureaucrat on $10,000 a year or some shit wage ticks the box. She's already a bureaucrat who hates men, who hates the family. She's been radicalized with all sorts of propaganda. Ticks the box saying, I sent the letter out to Billy Bob. Now, if Billy Bob's got 30 days to respond, and if he doesn't respond, and the response is, it puts the entire burden of proof on Billy Bob. That he has 100% burden of proof in this. So anyway, they send this letter out to an address he might have once lived at, and years ago. Billy Bob doesn't respond in 30 days. He never got the letter, assuming it was even sent out. That's it. All the enforcement action suddenly clicks into place. And because it's a series of administrative measures that, if you like, computer generated or automatic escalation process. So So as soon as the collection act, as soon as the enforcement action goes into place to collect the money from Billy Bob, because they're going to go back 10 years now, Billy Bob owes $100,000. So they'll just send a circular out to all the banks and saying, anyone by the name of Billy Bob Smith from Dallas, and whatever he's got in his account up to the value of $100,000, you have to give it to us. Now, there's no legal measure being taken. There's no court order. There's no validation of evidence. There's no burden of proof. There's nothing. But Billy Bob's account gets cleaned out. Billy Bob doesn't know. There's no consultation with Billy Bob. The bank doesn't call Billy Bob and say, look, Billy Bob, we just want to let you know here because you got a lot of payments on your mortgage or your rent or your car payments or whatever. We want to just let you know so you can organise and put your affairs in order properly. No. There is nothing. So Billy Bob gets sent. Billy Bob goes to his bank to. Suddenly he's getting all these bounced checks and bounced payments, and he's getting letters of threat and demand. Your car payment wasn't made, and all this thing. He thinks, "Holy crap, what's going on? I've got $100,000 in the bank." So he goes to the bank, and it'll turn into a very Kafkaesque thing where the bank branch won't know. So they'll say, "Oh, you have to call the central, inquiries." So he calls, and he's on hold for an hour, maybe longer. It's a junior person he gets to talk, and they won't know either. So they'll have to hand it to a supervisor, and the supervisor so I'll have to escalate it to so and so. Then come back, say, "No, you'll have to now call this number." And so Billy Bob gets the runaround. It can take him days. He's tearing his hair out. He's exasperated to the nth degree, and then he finally gets through to some central commissariat that say, "Look, we've given the money to the alimony people because they sent us a letter saying they wanted it." "What? You did what? Well, is there a court order?" So I'm not able to discuss it with you. That's all I'm allowed to say. So that's it. Billy Bob's still in the dark. So he's got to make inquiries. He's got to try and work out what's going on, all at his time and expense. And then finally he gets to work out what's going on. So then he thinks, "Holy shit, I don't even know this woman. I've got to take this matter to court," because the only option he's got now, that they can act administratively, so that the bank and the organs of the state can act. They just tick boxes on forms and they can just act. They can just do it without consultation, without weighing the evidence, without anything. They can just act administratively, as they did in debanking Nigel Farage in Britain and other debanking they've done. They can just do it administratively from some central office, quietly, like some sort of stab in the back in the dark. They can do that. But if you've got a problem, you have to go to court at all the time and expense that involves, because 100% of the burden of proof is on Billy Bob here. So he takes it to court. Now, it's not easy, because he can have a preliminary hearing, but the court won't do anything in the preliminary hearing. "Oh, well, you might be. We don't know that you're not the biological father. So, and do you want those little children to go with that? Do you want those little children to go with that? Hey, Billy Bob, you fucking Nazi." So he's got to go now. He's on a waiting list. They can act immediately and unilaterally. Immediately, they can decide to do it. Bang, it's done. Billy Bob wants to oppose it or question it or say, "Well, where's your evidence, for goodness sakes?" "Well, we don't have to give evidence. You have to prove you're not." So he can go on to a 2-year waiting list for the matter to be heard, and all sorts of obstacles are deliberately and purposefully put in Billy Bob's way. Now, I've lost a lot of employees through this. And if you've ever seen an employee or someone it doesn't have to be an employee, a colleague or family member, anybody who's been subject to this, that they sort of walk around with this stunned, vacant expression. They just can't believe it's happening to them. Where's the law? Where's the evidence? Where's the requirement to prove? Where's where are all the supposed safeguards that exist? Well, those safeguards were taken away, and the government and can get the banks to act out. So when it does get to court, the government says, "Well, it's not us. We didn't do it. It's not us. It's the bank did it. The bank did it. It's them. They said they did it. No, not us. Well, we're blameless." Which is, of course, utter and absolute nonsense. But that's how they use banks to do their dirty work, and they've been doing it for a long time. Now, I raised a number of concerns back in when I first discovered this. I don't know how long it'd be going on before I came across it. But when I first came across it, I was staggered, and I went into personally went into one of the courts to look at it. And there's a guy came in who his bank account had been swept of all money. He didn't have a penny in the bank account. He had a reasonably good job and so on, but they were not only had they swept his account, but they were intercepting his salary or his payments as it went into his bank account, and he was giving evidence. He said, "Look, the company will only pay me through the bank account, so I've kind of got no choice. So I can't stop them taking the money. So I'm trying to stop it legally through the courts." And the court couldn't have been less helpful and could not have been less on his side when they heard this case. And he argued, "So I don't know this. I never lived in that city, so it's not possible for me to be biologically related." And by the way, my name's not even on the birth certificate, so why we? Well, it doesn't matter. She said you are the biological. That she signed a form saying you are. That's it. You are. You have now 100% burden of proof to prove that you're not. And he's, the guy was arguing, "Well, look, I can't make any of the payments. I'm going to have to sell my house. I'm going, your problem. We don't care. She said you are. As far as we're concerned, you are, and we must think of the children." And a bit like the way the globalist mass migration people, they love photographs of little girls in pink and things like that to try and gin up the thing. Well, we have to let these people come. They only want a better life. They've got a little girl in pink. A little girl in pink. Do you want her to not have a better life? You fucking Nazi. So this is very much the emotional sort of inflammatory type propaganda they use. But this has been going for a long time. Now, there was some pushback, but the government, all Western governments, pushed back hard against the pushback, saying, "But we're doing it for the children, the little children. And you're against it, which makes you a Nazi and you hate children and da-da-da." So the propaganda that the government relied on, with the full support of the media, by the way, was very much we should be allowed to act arbitrarily. We should be allowed to act without evidence because the moral requirement is so great. Little children are starving. Now, there was no little children starving. It's bullshit. The government could have given the money anyway, so while they sorted it out. But they didn't want that. They wanted a situation where they could act arbitrarily, and for reasons of changing the social makeup of society and changing the concept of accountability and using the legal system, and in this case, of course, the banks to just go after people. The enemy was the straight white male. That was the enemy. He was the ideological enemy, and anything was done to crush him was automatically a good. It must be a good because that's the class enemy. And so it's been going for a long time, and the legal establishment and all that didn't push back against this. It was, and it was just allowed to go through. So this is now acclimatized, if you like, the entire judicial, banking, government, ideological system to accept that is an acceptable practice. You can just act arbitrarily and having to give cause or reason or anything like that at all. Whereas what they should have done at the time and didn't do, and the opportunity was missed, was to say, no, we need evidence here. And that evidence would matter, and there would be proper court. The government can give you money to stop you from starving, so that'll go. So let's now quickly move to prove this. But we don't have to prove it because he's a straight white male. He's a class enemy. He's the damn fucking oppressor. He is the Nazi. We don't have to afford him those legal rights. His legal rights mean nothing. The more important legal rights are the little children, and we have to get the money off that damn fucking Nazi. So as soon as you play ideological games like that, which is what they clearly were, and this has now come into someone that, so you're complaining about COVID or climate change or mass migration, that's it, we're taking away your banking services. So this is really a continuation of that, and as I see it. And I saw, here was another, here's a guy, this is a guy who's a programmer, very good one actually, computer programmer at this place where I was, like the VP, and he'd had a liaison with some girl when he's like 17 or 18, and she'd got pregnant. They agreed she would get an abortion. He paid for the abortion, and he paid for something else too. Like she didn't want her folks to know, so she stayed in a hotel for a couple of weeks or something, and he paid for that, or she said this is how much it's going to cost, and he paid for it. And anyways, it turns out she decided to keep the child and keep the money. So he went off to work on like oil rigs or something like that out in the middle of nowhere. They had no contact. And so, and then she moved in with her parents. Anyway, so, 10, 12, whatever years later, she applies for some sort of government, payment or handout or unemployment benefit, something like that. And you get more if you've got a kid. So we've got to say who the biological parent is. So they started coming after him, wanting 10, 12 years of back payment on child support. So he quite reasonably said, and he'd kept the letters and he'd kept all the correspondence that they the emails and the whatevers, and he kept everything and said, look, she said, they're getting this was the agreement. It was like a sort of a legal agreement, and I paid everything I was supposed to. She's broken that agreement. Why should I have to pay now because of her deceit and treachery and so on? Don't care. The child's welfare comes first. You have to pay, motherfucker. And so he had to pay, but so he was absolutely destroyed by this, and so he calculated sort of if he paid, he calculated what he'd have to pay and over what time frame and these sort of things. And the kid was supposed to have special needs, so he was going to have to pay up until the kid turned 26. And he looked at that and looked at what he was going to have to pay and realized that his life was over. It was no longer, he couldn't work a normal job, he couldn't have a bank, he could that sort of stuff. So he decided to just work in the underground economy, just for cash and barter and this sort of thing. And when he had his folks converted the garage or like a shed in the backyard into a very compact 1-bedroom place, and he went to learn. That's how he lived out I don't know about the rest of his life, certainly for a number of years thereafter. And so nothing was achieved by this, and yet they were unprepared to accept the deceit, except that the woman had a responsibility for that deceit. You kept the money, and you said you were getting an abortion and this sort of stuff. So you're going to have to live on government benefits. Too bad. You have to be accountable for that decision. But instead, they switch around and say, no, she's not accountable. And anyway, that would penalise the child. We can't have that, so he has to pay. So the only solution ever that the class enemy, the ideological enemy, in this case, people that question globalization, must be punished. We must find a way in the system of punishing these people, whether through government action or government coercing action from social media platforms or banks. But it doesn't matter how we do it, but we need to find ways of punishment, which is an element of, and a very key element of, the social credit system. Now, it doesn't mean that in China, for example, you can get penalized for sticking chewing gum on things or spitting on the sidewalk or littering the street. There are other things that you say, well, okay, well, that's maybe not too bad. That could be a good idea. If you urinate in the street, you can get social credit demerits, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. But inevitably, those things will be, who cares about that? We want to use it as a method of control and brainwashing the populace. And if they step out of line and make an ill-advised comment or utterance, and ideological governments are all like ideological governments are not legitimate. They are absolutely not legitimate, which makes them paranoid about their power and their control, paranoid about it. And that's then reflected in how they administer the social credit system. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.